BGMC. The biblical truth lives here.
The ancient Hebrew scriptures foretold of the Anointed One, Yeshua HaMashiach. The Messiah Yeshua came to call the people back to the truth of His word and to follow that righteous path. Yeshua then called Jewish men to be His disciples, and after His death and resurrection, those Jewish men told the world about the Jewish Messiah. Now, after 2,000 years, Beth Goyim Messianic Congregation has that same calling of those Jewish men, telling all people, both Jew and Gentile, about the proper ancient path, teaching the Route 66 King's Highway from Genesis through to Revelation, and how you need and can get back to the proper roots of the faith and a closer walk with God. Now, let's hear the message.
Continuing Parasha that I was on last time, which was Bereshit 24 and 25. Really, 25 was not part of last time, but it was along the same theme, so we continued into it. So let's review that just a little bit. Abraham took another wife whose name was Keturah, and she bore him 6 children, so it was quite a good time for Abraham. You know, his cursing, his difficulties and everything had turned into blessing. His hardship had turned totally into blessing. So we went through that. We went through the genealogy of Ishmael. And that brings us to...
Do you need my phone to look some up words out for you? Okay.
That brings us to the history of Yitzhak, where we start today. Now you're going to see the disobedience starts right back up again after Abraham, after all of that time, after all of that travail to make him obedient to the master. You see that here is the history of Yitzhak, Abraham's son. Abraham fathered Yitzhak, and Yitzhak was 40 years old when he took Rivkah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramee from Padan Aram, the sister of Laban the Aramee, to be his wife. Yitzhak prayed to YEHOVAH on behalf of his wife because she was childless. YEHOVAH heeded his prayer, and Rivkah became pregnant. The children fought with each other inside of her so much that she said, if it's going to be like this, why go on living? So she went to inquire of YEHOVAH, who answered her, there are 2 nations in your womb. From birth, they will be 2 rival peoples. One of these peoples will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. When the time came for her delivery, there were twins in her womb. The first to come out was reddish and covered all over with hair like a coat. So they named him Esau. His brother emerged with his hand holding Esau's heel, so he was called Yaakov. Yitzhak was 60 years old when she bore them, so he was not a young guy. The boys grew, and Esau became a skillful hunter, an outdoorsman, while Yaakov was a quiet man who stayed in the tents. Yitzhak favored Esau because he had a taste for game. Rivkah favored Yaakov. So the stage is set, the table's set, and now here comes the problems. One day, Yaakov had cooked some stew, and Esau came in from the open country, exhausted, and said to Yaakov, please let me gulp down some of that red stuff. That red stuff, I'm exhausted. Yaakov answered, first, sell me your rights as firstborn. Esau said, look, I'm about to die. What use to me are rights as firstborn? Yaakov said, first swear to me. So he swore to him, selling his birthright to Yaakov. Then Yaakov gave him bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and got up and went on his way. Thus Esau showed how little he valued his birthright. So how many of you guys would sell your birthright for a bowl of stew?
¿Cuántos de ustedes vendieron su primogenitura por un plato de lentejas?
Well, before you answer too quickly,
Antes de que ustedes respondan rápido,
you better understand all the time you guys spent not following the Lord before you accepted Yeshua.
todo ese tiempo que ustedes demoraron antes de secular, antes de aceptar a Yeshua,
You had given away your birthright.
en todo ese tiempo usted había dejado su primogenitura atrás.
And what you were onto was probably less valuable than a bowl of stew.
Cuando tú vienes a ver, usted había dejado toda su primogenitura por algo menos valioso que un plato de lentejas.
Because at least he ate the stew.
Porque por lo menos él sí se comió ese plato.
So he did actually get a little bit of something for his birthright.
Por eso, por lo menos él sí obtuvo algo por su primogenitura, aunque sea tan poco.
But you see, our birthright is as children of the king.
Pero nuestra primogenitura, ya que somos nosotros hijos del rey,
We give it away just the same way when we sin.
entregamos esa primogenitura de la misma forma que él cuando nosotros pecamos.
Anybody ever look at it that way before?
¿Será que alguien vio esto de la primogenitura de esa forma y anteriormente lo he visto ya?
Well, you guys must have spring fever today. Everybody's taking a nap.
Pues quizás ustedes tengan fiebre de primavera, que quizás hayan tenido fiebre de primavera y están tomando una siesta a esta hora.
Okay, well, it gets even more interesting then.
Bueno, vamos a hacerlo un poquito más interesante todo esto.
Chapter 26, Bereshit 26.
Génesis 26.
There is a famine over the land.
Hubo en ese tiempo una hambruna en la tierra.
So Yitzhak went to Gerar to Abimelech the king.
Eso fue cuando Isaac fue a donde el rey Abimelech.
Now he was the king of the Philistines.
Él era el rey de los filisteos, Abimelech.
So anyway, YEHOVAH appeared to him.
De todas formas, aún así, el Eterno se le apareció a Abimelech, el rey.
And he said, do not go into Mitzrayim, Egypt.
O que diga, se le apareció a Jacob y le dijo que no fuera hacia Egipto.
He said, stay in this land, I'll be with you and I'll bless you.
Le dijo, quédate aquí, a
He says,
Isaac,
go ahead.
a Isaac le dijo que se quedara, que no fuera a Egipto.
He says, I'm going to give you these lands to your descendants so I can fulfill the oath that I swore to Abraham, your father.
Y le dijo él a Isaac, el Eterno Isaac, que se quedara en la tierra en la cual estaba habitando, para que para que el Eterno pudiera completar la promesa que le hizo a su padre Abraham.
So this is because Abraham heeded what he said and told him what to do and followed his mitzvot and his regulations.
Y eso fue porque él sí completó o cumplió Abraham con lo que le había dicho o con cumplir los mismos que el Eterno le había hablado y le había mandado a él que hiciera.
So Yitzhak settled in Gerar.
Entonces estamos en el versículo 6 donde habitó pues Yitzhak en Gerar.
So the men of the place asked him about his wife, and out of fear he said, "She is my sister."
Y entonces los hombres del lugar le preguntaron sobre su esposa y él les respondió que era su hermana.
Because he thought she's a beautiful woman, and they'll kill me to get her.
Él pensó que mi mujer es muy hermosa, entonces estos sujetos me van a matar para quedarse con mi esposa Rebeca.
Okay, so already the guy is not believing YEHOVAH. YEHOVAH already told him his descendants are going to cover the earth, be numerous like the stars.
Y una vez más, pues esta línea ya pasó con Abraham anteriormente, pero esta vez con Isaac, no confió en lo que el Eterno le había dicho, que su descendencia iba a ser como las estrellas del cielo, como la arena del mar.
So obviously he didn't believe that. He thought he might get killed right away.
Obviamente no lo pensó, no lo creyó, pensó que iba a ser asesinado de esa forma, o sea que no, por causa de su esposa.
So it can't be both ways. Either your descendants are going to cover the earth, or you're going to get killed over your wife. And YEHOVAH already told him his descendants would cover the earth.
Entonces no puede ser de las dos formas, o es de una o es de la otra. Ya el Eterno le había dicho a él que su descendencia iba a ser como la arena del mar y que iba, o sea que él debió de confiar de que no iba a ser asesinado.
So you see some unbelief in Yitzhak.
Aquí puedes ver una falta de confianza de Isaac.
But YEHOVAH straightens him out right here. He sends a pagan king to straighten him out. Listen.
Y de esta forma es que el Eterno lo endereza a él. Así usó el Eterno a este rey. Escuchen esto, verso 9.
One day after they lived there a long time.
Después esto es después que ellos habían vivido ahí por un buen rato.
Abimelech, the king, looked out the window and he spotted Yitzhak caressing Rivka, his wife.
Y una vez observó a Yitzhak que estaba acariciando a Rebeca. Y estaba el rey mirando, lo observó por la ventana.
So Abimelech says, "She is your wife after all."
Abimelech le dijo, pues entonces sí es tu esposa después de todo, ¿eh?
So he says, "What is this you've done? One of the people could have easily slept with your wife and you would have brought guilt on us."
Entonces le dijo a Abimelech, ¿qué fue esto que hiciste? ¿Y qué fue lo que te hicimos nosotros? Quizás nos hubiese hecho daño si una persona de estos hombres se hubiese acostado con tu esposa y hubiese traído una maldición sobre nosotros.
So he made an order that anyone who touches the man or his wife will be put to death.
Entonces Abimelech en el verso 11 mandó a que todo el pueblo, a que el que tocara, ya sea hombre o mujer, sea muerto.
So anybody want to gather how Abimelech knew the laws of Elohim? Because clearly he knew about the laws of Elohim.
Entonces, ¿quiere alguien explicar o decir de qué forma Abimelech sabía las leyes del Eterno, porque obviamente se nota aquí que él sí sabía las leyes del Eterno.
Because he said it would have brought guilt on us if someone slept with your wife.
Porque dijo que esto, esto iba a traer una culpa a aquel a cualquiera que se acostare con tu esposo.
So that's not one of the law of the Philistine. That's one of the laws of our God.
Y esa no es una de las leyes de los filisteos, esa es una de las leyes de nuestro Elohim.
Because when did the Philistine ever have righteous laws?
Porque cuando los filisteos han tenido leyes justas.
So what's everybody think of this? Somebody's got to have some comment on that now. The Philistine knew the laws of God.
Entonces, alguien debe tener algún comentario aquí en este canal de ahora, en este momento, que sobre esto. ¿Será que los filisteos tuvieron leyes del Eterno o qué?
Shalom, Rabbi Will. Wasn't it that in that time that every king, that every man that became king had to know the Torah?
Yeah, but this is the king of the Philistine, not the king of Israel.
Este es el rey de los filisteos, no rey de Israel.
But the Torah lives in all of us.
They didn't have our laws.
Ellos no seguían nuestras leyes.
I know they didn't have our laws, but I'm saying that the Torah lives in us, in all of us, whether it's Jew or Gentile.
Very good.
Muy bien.
Anybody else?
¿Alguien más?
The Torah wasn't written back then either. The Torah was written after Moshe.
That's right. Well, the key is the next lines. Go ahead and translate, Rabbi Yehoshua.
La clave está en el próximo verso. Benjamin expresó que la Torah no estaba escrita, fue escrita hasta Moshe. Y Shoshana está diciendo que la ley en realidad está en los corazones de cada uno de nosotros, independientemente de que seamos pueblo o no. El Eterno ya había colocado la Torah en el corazón nuestro.
Okay, the story unfolds and it's revealed to us how the Philistine knew good from evil. And here goes. Yitzhak became rich and prospered more and more until he had become very wealthy indeed.
Estamos leyendo alrededor del versículo 17 que Isaac habitó allí y acampó allá y se enriqueció.
Now the Philistine had stopped up and filled with dirt all the wells his father's servants had dug during the lifetime of Abraham his father.
Entonces allí fue donde what verse, Rob, are you reading exactly?
Oh, I'm just paraphrasing. It's 26 15. I'm only paraphrasing though. That's why I'm not calling the verses.
Él está parafraseando todo en realidad y estaba leyendo donde obtuvo todas las bendiciones y se enriqueció en el verso 13. Pero estaba leyendo donde el verso 15, donde Isaac habitó ahí en los lados del pozo que ya Abraham había hecho.
So here around 26:16, Abimelech said to Yitzhak, "You must get away from us because you've become much more powerful than we are."
Entonces ahí en el 16, Abimelech le dijo, bueno, ya debes de apartarte de nosotros, a Isaac, porque te has enriquecido y eres más poderoso que nosotros.
So Yitzhak left and set up camp in the Valley Gerar and lived there.
Entonces Isaac se movió de ahí y acampó en el valle de Gerar.
So Yitzhak reopened the wells which had been dug during the lifetime of his father, the ones the Philistine had stopped up after Abraham had died.
Y después en el tiempo en el lugar que él habitó, él también abrió esos pozos que lo habían cerrado los filisteos cuando Abraham murió, que lo habían hecho Abraham. Él los reabrió de nuevo.
So we see in the next lines that the Philistine had contact with Abraham.
Entonces vemos en esa línea que los filisteos habían tenido ya contacto con Abraham
And his servants.
y con sus siervos.
And that proves true what YEHOVAH told Abraham.
Y eso prueba la veracidad de lo que ya el Eterno le había prometido y le había dicho a Abraham.
YEHOVAH told Abraham, all nations will be blessed by you.
Ya el Eterno le había dicho a Abraham, todas las naciones van a ser bendecidas por medio de ti.
So they had the blessing of YEHOVAH's word, knowing good from evil, right from wrong.
Entonces ya esa es una de las partes de las bendiciones que da el Eterno, de saber diferenciar entre lo bueno y lo malo, de qué está correcto y qué no.
Now that doesn't mean they fully followed. If
Eso
you
no,
read here,
no significa que ellos pues sí iban a seguir a totalidad las leyes, pero si leemos aquí,
it said twice the Philistine filled in the wells.
dice 2 veces, habla de que los filisteos habían llenado los pozos o cubierto los pozos.
Why didn't they just claim the wells as a blessing and start taking water out of them? You got to be stupid to fill in a well when you live in the desert.
Y viviendo en el desierto, debe de ser un idiota en vez de aprovechar los pozos y utilizarlos, vienen y los tapan. ¿Por qué tapan ellos los pozos de agua?
So it doesn't mean they claimed all of the blessings, but there's no record of Abraham telling them they can't have any water out of the well.
Entonces no hay ningún sitio escrito donde reporta que Abraham le dijera a ellos que no tomaran del agua. Ellos solamente podían venir y beber del agua, no había ningún problema, pero ellos los taparon.
But we see their descendants acting the same way today.
Pues vemos que las personas que están ahí hoy en día, llamadas por el mismo nombre, están haciendo lo mismo, no se están aprovechando, no están usando las bendiciones.
They hate Israel so much that they'll destroy anything built by Jews.
Odian tanto a Israel que todo lo que es construido por parte de los judíos, ellos lo destruyen.
Even if they could use it.
Aun cuando ellos puedan utilizar esa bendición o lo que han construido los judíos.
It's you see the same spirit at work. You see the Philistines were so filled with that spirit that they actually filled the wells up.
Y ven el mismo espíritu obrando, el mismo espíritu que está obrando en ellos ahora, obró aquí en aquel entonces. Ves como ellos no utilizan el pozo, sino que lo llenan, lo tapan.
Anybody ever look at it that way before? Like it showed a condition of their heart, a hatred in their heart for Abraham and YEHOVAH's laws and his ways.
¿Alguien más había visto esta actitud de ellos, ese odio hacia las leyes y la forma en los cuales Abraham había hecho estas cosas de bendición? Entonces, cómo ellos actuaron con odio hacia estas obras que el Eterno ya había mandado hacer.
So anybody ever looked at it that way before?
¿Será que alguien ya había visto este pasaje de esa forma que estamos analizando ahora?
Yes, Rabbi. They have like so much hate in their inside of them, and so much like if they're so jealous of the Jews that's why they hate them so much.
That's right. Well, we're going to see that continue right here in Scripture. 26, let's go to 19. Yitzhak's servants.
Vamos a leer el 19.
Yitzhak's servants dug in the valley and uncovered a spring of running water.
Y en el 19 está diciendo que pues cuando los siervos de Isaac cavaron en el valle y hallaron allí un pozo de agua que tenía agua viva, fluía.
But the herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Yitzhak's herdsmen, claiming that water is ours.
Entonces ahí de todas formas, los que habitaban en ese lugar, los pastores de Gerar, tuvieron riñas con los pastores de Isaac diciéndole a él que no, esa agua es nuestra.
So he called the well Esek, which means quarrel.
Entonces Isaac nombró ese pozo Esek por lo que había sucedido, porque altercaron con él, habían reñido con él.
So they dug another well and quarreled over that one too, so he called it Sitnah, which means enmity.
Entonces abrieron otro pozo, obviamente, en verso 21, y también tuvieron riña con él, y llamó él su nombre Sitnah por la actitud que tuvieron.
So he went away from there and dug another well, and over that one they didn't quarrel, so he called it Rechavot, wide open spaces, and said, because now YEHOVAH has made room for us, and we will be productive in the land.
Entonces el verso 22 dice que él abrió otro pozo distinto, y no riñeron con él, y él llamó su nombre Rehoboth, porque ahora el Eterno ya lo había prosperado y fructificado ahí en esa tierra.
Okay, so you see the word of YEHOVAH is still following him and still coming true. He's still blessing all the other nations everywhere he goes, because he's in the valley in a dry desert of nothing, and he's digging, and everywhere he digs, he hits water. He even hit one well that was a running spring, so it made its own creek. So, but anyway, so they ran him off.
Aquí vemos que la bendición estaba, como el Eterno había bendecido a Isaac, y donde quiera que ellos hacían un pozo, venía la bendición y bendecía ese otro pueblo que estaba ahí. Y incluso cuando abrió uno de ellos, tenía agua viva, o sea, agua corriente, o sea que se hizo de ahí un río, se hizo un arroyo de ese pozo que abrieron, y vemos como aún así, aunque había las riñas, el Eterno bendecía tanto a los que se quedaban con el pozo de todas formas.
Okay, so clearly he's still blessing all the nations. Everywhere he digs, they get water.
Así era obvio y claro de que él seguía bendeciendo a esos pueblos, habrían pozos y él le daba esa agua a ellos.
So then finally he finds a place where they don't argue with him.
Y finalmente encontró un lugar donde no hubo riña ni problemas con ellos.
So he keeps moving on.
De ahí después él siguió avanzando.
We're going to go 26:23.
Y vamos a leer del 26-23.
From there, Yitzhak went up to Beersheba. Jehovah appeared to him that same night and said, I am the Elohim of Abraham your father.
Y entonces aquí en Beersheba apareció el Eterno en una noche, o esa noche, y le dijo, yo soy el Elohim de Abraham tu padre.
He tells him not to be afraid. He tells him he is with him.
Le dijo que él estaba con él y que no tuviera miedo.
And that he's going to bless him and increase his descendants for the sake of his servant Abraham.
Y que él iba a multiplicar a su descendencia por amor a su padre, Abraham.
So he built an altar there and called on the name of Jehovah.
Entonces ahí fue que él edificó un altar e invocó el nombre del Eterno.
And he pitched his tent, and Yitzhak's servants dug another well.
Y plantó él allí su tienda y abrió allí también otro pozo.
So now everybody's starting to notice there's something about this guy.
Entonces alguien ya de este punto comenzaron a notar los demás que había algo con este sujeto que es Isaac.
From there, Yitzhak went up to Beersheba.
Y allí se fue a Beersheba.
That was the wrong line, excuse me. 26. Then Abimelech went to him from Gerar with his friend Achuzat and Pichol.
Y entonces el verso 26 dice que Abimelech vino desde Gerar y Achuzat, amigo suyo, y Pichol, capitán del ejército.
Yitzhak said to them, why have you come to me, even though you were unfriendly and sent me away?
Isaac le dijo, ¿por qué vienes a mí? Porque tú me habías echado así, me aborreciste y me echaste.
So they answered, we saw very clearly that Jehovah has been with you. So we said, let there be an oath between us, and let's make a pact between ourselves and you so that you will not harm us.
Entonces le está diciendo él, le dijo Abimelech a él, hemos visto que el Eterno está contigo y dijimos, vamos a hacer un juramento nosotros contigo, con Isaac, hagamos un pacto para que tú no nos hagas mal a nosotros.
So anyway, Yitzhak does not have hard feelings.
Y una vez más, Isaac no tenía sentimientos contra ellos.
So here in 26:30, Yitzhak prepared a banquet for them, and they ate and drank.
Entonces Isaac viene y le hace un banquete y come con ellos. Comieron y bebieron.
So the next morning they got up early and swore to each other, and then Yitzhak sent them on their way, and they left him peacefully.
Entonces el verso 31, y se levantaron de madrugada y juraron el uno al otro, e Isaac les despidió y ellos se despidieron de él en paz.
So that very day Yitzhak's servants came to him and told him about the well they had dug. We have found water. So he called it Shiva. This is the reason the name of the city is Beersheba, well of the seven, or well of the oath, to this day.
Entonces ahí, hasta este día, bueno, ese mismo día ellos fueron y los siervos de Isaac le comentaron que el pozo que habían abierto, hallaron agua ahí también. Y se llamó Seba. Entonces, o Sheba, que significa 7, y por esa causa le nombró Beersheba a ese lugar, a esa ciudad. Y hasta el sol de hoy se llama Beersheba.
So here you see the growth of Yitzhak. He almost made some of the very same huge mistakes.
Y aquí vemos como Yitzhak también pues comete los mismos errores que cometió su padre.
But you see, Jehovah sent people to correct him immediately.
Y inmediatamente ves como el Eterno le envía personas a corregirle.
So now here he's getting on in years. He's lived most of his life here.
Y ya aquí vemos como él vive grandes días, o sea, ya estaba bien mayor de edad aquí.
So you see that he ends up with wealth and plenty of supplies, plenty of security.
Y ves cómo él crece aquí en seguridad y en bendiciones, vamos a decir así, en propiedades y en riquezas. Julie has her hand up.
Okay, go ahead, Julie.
No sound, Julie.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Sorry, technical difficulties. Is this better? I wondered if you could remind us the Hebrew what the Beersheba means. You mentioned the Sheba. I wondered if you could remind us what the whole name means.
It means the well of the seven, because 7 of those guys came to him and they all swore an oath to one another.
Because beer is part of a lot of names in Hebrew.
Yes, it's wells. It's where they dug wells.
Okay. Gracias.
Aquí la pregunta fue que les recordara la traducción o el significado de Berseba. Entonces, Raúl le está diciendo que ellos cavaban pozos, entonces ellos le pusieron Berseba, por Ber sería pozo en este caso, y Sheba es 7, por los 7 que fueron y juraron que iban a hacer paz ese día. Entonces colocaron Beersheba a la ciudad. Y también Sheba es pacto. Entonces, el pozo del pacto también puede ser. O sea, tanto Sheba puede ser 7 como pacto también.
So we have Yitzhak old and full of years now, and he has supplies and security and the respect and promises from all the surrounding people. So he's in a pretty good place.
Entonces ya vemos aquí que está en un buen lugar o está establecido de buena forma, ya que aunque está rodeado por estas personas, estas 7 naciones o pueblos entonces, habían hecho pacto con él de paz. Entonces ya estaba el bien mayor de edad y a la misma vez como ya tenía seguridad, confianza y tenía bienestar o también riquezas.
Now with this last line before chapter 27, before we close, we see where the drama starts back up again.
Y en esta última línea que vamos a ver ahora, también podemos ver cómo pues comienza también otra cosa, otro error, otra maldad, dice David.
When Esau was 40 years old, he took as wives Judith, the daughter of Beri, the Hittite, and Basmat, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and they became a cause for embitterment of spirit to Yitzhak and Rivka.
Entonces leemos este último versículo antes de concluir este capítulo y vemos que dice el verso 34, y cuando Esaú era de 40 años, tomó por mujer a Judith, hija de Beri el Eteo, y a Basemat, hija de Elón Eteo, y fueron amargura de espíritu para Isaac y para Rebeca.
So you see more evidence that Yitzhak had a son whose not only did his birthright mean anything to him, Later, his birthright meant something to him, but it's only because he wanted to gorge himself on material things.
Entonces vemos como en Isaac, Esaú aquí, la actitud de él de no prácticamente aferrarse o apegarse a la primogenitura. Aquí vemos como él no le daba aprecio, importancia a la primogenitura, sino que hacía cosas que afectaran su postura delante de sus padres.
You see evidence of that. He wanted to gulp down the red stuff, the lentil stew, and once he got up and left like it was nothing.
Vemos aquí como era su actitud de que no le importaran las cosas. Aquí vemos como él, pues como de la misma forma del plato de lentejas, así mismo no le importó, quería coger las cosas y ya.
So you see, Esau only wanted to satisfy his own appetites.
Vemos como Esaú solo quería satisfacer su apetito.
So his rights as firstborn meant little to him, nothing, basically.
Así que su derecho a primogenitura realmente para él no valía nada.
And we have the answer to why right here. He took Hittite women as wives.
Y vemos aquí la respuesta de esto. Él toma mujeres de Eteas como esposas.
Well, this proves that the continuation of his own father's house and lineage also meant nothing to him. So that's why, this is the root of why his birthright meant nothing to him.
Esta es la raíz por la cual vemos que su primogenitura no valía nada para él. Él quería el linaje de sus padres, no lo apreciaba como para continuarlo.
You see, Abraham took a wife from his own people.
Vemos que Abraham tomó esposa de su propia parentela, de su gente.
He sent his servant to get Yitzhak a wife from among his own people.
Él toma a su siervo y envía para que traigan una esposa de su gente hacia Isaac.
And later we'll talk later in the next parasha, we'll talk about Yaakov's wives.
Y en la próxima parasha vamos a ver cómo se resuelve para buscarle esposa a Jacob. Jacob va hacia su parentela también.
But you see here, Esau cared nothing for the lineage, for the bloodline.
Aquí vemos como Esaú no le importó nada de su línea sanguínea.
So what does everybody think of that? You ever thought of that as being the root of why he did not care for his birthright? Because he didn't care for the bloodline in the first place.
Habían visto esto anteriormente, como que esta es la raíz de cómo a él no le importaba nada de su primogenitura, de su línea sanguínea, como cuando él toma mujeres de estos pueblos que ya han sido sentenciados ya.
Well, you guys must have taken a tranquilizer before you got on.
Entonces, yo creo que ustedes tomaron un tranquilizante antes de la clase, que están tan quietos y tranquilos.
Julie has her hand.
Go ahead.
Well, I like the points that you have brought. I had to write them down about, when we sin, we also throw away our birthright. I think that was a very powerful statement, and my thought keeps going back to an extra biblical book that I've read, which whether there's any fact to it or it's just extra biblical that he had I forget who we're talking about here. Esau had the reason that he came in so famished and was running for his life and didn't care about it, thought he was going to die, was because that he had just killed Nimrod. And so he thought he was being chased and going to die. Whether that's true or not, like I said, it's an extra biblical book.
Yeah, actually, that book was written by witches in Shamron.
Well, like I said, I didn't name it because it's an extra biblical book, but anyways, so as it makes me wonder, as a person, as a person that was known for hunting game, how did he come to be in a situation where he didn't have food?
Have you ever gone hunting?
My family is hunters, but
Yeah, I go hunting in the woods a lot. And sometimes it just turns out that way.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I've never hunted in that part of the world, so I can't say.
Well, a lot can happen. I've been in the woods and it's come furious storms, hailstorms, various other things. You can have a bad day. We used to go on fishing and hunting trips that lasted multiple days down on the islands. We have a massive river that runs through this county and it's full of islands. And we've been out on those and things sometimes have gone very badly. So probably we only can conjecture. I promise you the other book is probably garbage. But the most likely scenario for Esau being famished and thinking he's going to die is he's probably been out on a long hunt and it's not gone well.
I just, like I said, that having read through those other things, just out of as the curve starts somewhere when you change over from Sunday church to learning Messianic, there's a whole bunch of things that get thrown at you sometimes to read and learn, and of course not all of it's valid. It takes a little bit to get through that curve. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. Anybody else? Anybody else ever thought that when you were in sin, your birthright had been sold away for just a trifling thing like a bowl of lentil stew?
¿Alguien más ya había pensado en esto de cuando ustedes estaban en pecado o no estaban siguiendo los misbot, habían vendido su primogenitura por menos de un plato de lentejas? Robert has his hand up.
All right. Go ahead, Rabbi Andrew.
I think it's something we need to think about in our inheritance. You translate?
Shana, dale.
Something we have to think about our inheritance.
Algo que tenemos que pensar de nuestra, ¿cómo se llama? Herencias.
Is it more to you than just objects?
Es más para ustedes que solo objetos.
Is it something that's spiritual?
Es algo que es espiritual.
And that's what he was not, that's what Esau didn't give understanding to.
Y eso fue lo que hizo, no le dio entendimiento a eso.
And that's what we don't give understanding to.
Y eso es lo que nosotros no le damos entendimiento tampoco.
we give away our inheritance through Messiah Yeshua.
Nosotros damos nuestra herencia a través de el Mesías Yeshua,
With something of our flesh.
con algo de nuestra carne.
Whatever it is. I mean, whatever, we did in the past.
De lo que sea, de cualquier cosa que hayamos hecho en el pasado.
And I agree that you could be hungry if you've been on a hunt for a long time and have not caught anything.
Y yo estoy de acuerdo de que sí puede uno tener bastante hambre si uno está cazando y no ha podido cazar nada.
But medically, if you're walking and you're speaking, you're not going to die.
Pero médicamente, si usted está caminando y está hablando, no está por morirse.
So he didn't care. He wouldn't care about his inheritance until later when I'm going to get the money.
Entonces, básicamente, no por la herencia, sino hasta después que él recibiera dinero.
So we need to think about our eternal inheritance.
Entonces, nosotros tenemos que pensar en la herencia que vamos a tener en nuestra eternidad.
And that's what he was not thinking about.
Y eso es lo que él no estaba pensando.
Hi, Rebel.
Yeah, well, thank you, Rob Andrew. Those were excellent points. Excellent points indeed.
Pero también le dice a Rob Andrew de que esos eran unos puntos muy excelentes.
So he only cared about.
A eso no le importó.
He only cared about satisfying his appetites.
So, básicamente, él solo le importó en satisfacer de lo que él quería, el apetito que él tenía.
Well, and that's the reason for the Hittite women.
Y ese es la razón de esas mujeres Geteas, ¿se dice?
If you study the Hittite and their practices,
entonces, y las mujeres esas con las que se casó Esau, las Hittite mujeres y las prácticas de ellas,
they were into satisfying their men's appetites.
Entonces ellas estaban en satisfacer los apetitos de sus hombres.
As a matter of fact, those Hittite women probably made the Brazilian nightclub girls.
Básicamente esas mujeres hacían que las mujeres brasileñas se dieran.
They probably made those girls look like nuns.
Hacía que esas mujeres brasileñas se vieran como que fueran monjas.
So everybody clear on this? Any final thoughts before I turn it over to Rav Andrew?
¿Todo el mundo está claro en esto? ¿O tiene alguna pregunta antes de entregárselo a Rabino Andrew? Julie does.
All right, go ahead, Julie.
I was wondering about the covenant with Abimelech, and how long did that supposedly last? Because that's surely not in effect now. I only really am familiar with how often Israel fought against the Philistines. So, who broke this covenant first? Am I way too ahead in the story? Too far?
No, Abimelech broke the covenant and he got his head smashed in by a lower millstone for it.
Okay.
But that's another story.
Okay, that's as far ahead. Okay, I know it has to happen. I'm just wondering when, I guess. Thank you.
Abimelech suffered a very humiliating death, and by the way he died, we know that there is no way he can be in Yehovah's kingdom. So it did not go well for him after.
Básicamente la hermana Julie estaba preguntando que qué tanto duró el convenio que tenía Abimelech con Isaac y quién fue el que rompió el convenio, y básicamente fue Abimelech que lo rompió y tuvo una muerte que fue horrible la muerte, básicamente, tal del modo que murió que se sabe, que puede uno interpretar de que básicamente él no va a entrar al reino.
Shalom, this is Messianic Rabbi Andrew Dinnerman. I would personally like to thank you for tuning in to the Remnant's Call each and every week. You can listen to the full message on our website, bethgoyim.org. If you have drawn closer to the King of Kings, learned more about Him today, we are blessed. If you are blessed by these messages, please consider a donation to our ministry. You can go to our website, bethgoyim.org. That's BETHGOYIM.org, and click on the donate button. You do not have to have a PayPal account to donate. All you need is a debit card. Once again, thank you very much for listening to The Remnant's Call.
If you have not taken your first steps to be born again, just ask God's help. Remember, it's His loving grace that has come to find you. No one is worthy or able to reach God, but God can reach us, and He's reaching out to you now. Just open your heart and let Him in. His arms are open, and the blessing of salvation and eternal life are waiting for you. Don't let it wait any longer.
Ya Adonai, panavoleka, vikuneka, Yisa Adonai, panavoleka, vayasem laka, shalom. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord lift His face to shine upon you. May the Lord be gracious unto you and give you His shalom.
Shalom. My name is Messianic Rabbi Andrew Dinnerman, and I invite you to come to visit our congregation. If you are in the tri-state area, come out and visit with us on Shabbat. We are a congregation of Jews and Gentiles, living as one in the Messiah Yeshua. BGMC is a place of true worship. The focus never wanders from the Hebraic roots of our faith. Beth Goyim is rooted in the Word of God from Bereshit through to the book of Revelation. Messiah's strong words against man-made tradition are carefully recorded in Matthew 7. That is the reason we only follow the straight-up instructions found in Scripture, truly the way, the truth, and the life. If you're looking for a deeper walk with Adonai, come out for our Tuesday evening Bible study called Messianic Torah Time. Come, spend a day with us on any Shabbat. We start at 11 a.m. with the sound of the ancient Hebrew shofar. Next, we offer our King praise and worship in English, Hebrew, and Spanish. After worship, we review the headlines in the previous week's news from around the globe, especially news from the Holy Land, Israel. We don't just list the news headlines as current events, but we comb through the scriptures, searching for clues to understand what they mean and then to help pinpoint prophetically our current position on Adonai's clock. After digesting all that modern information, we leave the world behind as we journey with our Adonai deep into His eternal Word, not with just one or two scriptures, but usually 7 or more scriptures. The spiritual nourishment and the richness of His kingdom become accessible to the ones who share this special time and seek them out. The day does not end there. Because Shabbat is so special to Him, there is always so much more that our King desires to share. So instead of separating and leaving, we stay together as a family for potluck lunch and an afternoon study of our King's Word. We close the Shabbat together with a reading of the new week's Parasha. That's the Torah portion. Even after those blessings, many of us just can't get enough. So the members bring prepared homemade foods to share while we all enjoy an uplifting movie together. If all that information is not quite enough, you can check out our website where you will find over 200 video teachings and biblical holy day studies. Under Messianic Torah Time, the Hebrew Roots button, you'll discover free studies on many different topics, including PowerPoint slide presentations. If Beth Goyim sounds like a place you'd love to visit, but you live outside the tri-state area, there is still a way to connect with us. We stream live on the internet on Tuesday, Thursday, and Shabbat. The website is www.bethgoyim.org. That's BETHGOYIM.org. Our phone number is 973-338-7800 or 978-2-YESHUA. That's 978, the number 2, Yeshua. Shalom.